What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're having another race report. It's been a little while since we did one of these. Last one, if you recall, for 70.3 racing was North Carolina last October. But today we're talking about Musselman 70.3 held in Geneva, New York. It was this past Sunday, July 9th, 2023. And I'm going to take you through the typical race report breakdown that I go through of from why I chose this race and why I wanted to go there, to all the way how the course was, how I performed, and what some of the goals are going forward. So Musselman, it's held in Geneva, New York, 70.3. I believe this past year was, I think it was the 20th anniversary of the race up there. Ironman has had it the past few years up there branded under them. And it was just something special, something that I haven't done yet. It's local. It's in New York, upstate. It's about 5.5 hours from where I am. And I was looking to do a race I haven't done yet this year, 70.3. I've done a few races a couple times now, but I wanted to just start branching out and checking some boxes in some other areas and doing some new races. Jones Beach 70.3, as you all know, is coming in September. Wasn't announced when I signed up for this race, so I started planning my year without having that race on the calendar. This would be the first, or earliest I should say, 70.3 race I've done in a season. Typically they're end of July into August and September. It gives me the whole summer here on Long Island in New York to start training outdoors and really change gears into triathlon training when springtime hits. But a lot of teammates were doing it from Landshark Endurance. A lot of athletes that I'm coaching this year wanted to do it. So how could I not? Signed up, was going to toe the start line and give it a go. Interestingly enough, after I signed up for this race, my wife, who has done some triathlons before, decided it was her turn. She wanted to have her feet on the start line of a 70.3 for the first time ever. And again, this was before Jones Beach was released. She decided on this race, signed up, and started her training over the winter time for it. So training leading into this race, if you've been following along, I did a lot of trail running, did another 50K, a 50 miler over the winter time, building that large aerobic cardio base that I love to do in the winter time, and switched a little earlier than usual for triathlon training because of this race in early July, and started to transition into some of those things. So after we decided Musselman 70.3, we needed to start looking into some accommodations. It's up at Lake Seneca in the Finger Lakes. There's a whole bunch of places around the lake that you could look to stay, try and rent a house with some friends, or stay in a hotel within the city limits. But we were going up with some family, some friends. We needed a little more space. And when we started looking at the accommodations, things were starting to sell out quick. So a tip for this is, if you know you're doing this race next year, just book something as soon as possible. You can always change your reservations, but lock in. So we wound up staying just north of Geneva in Lyons. It was about a 25-minute drive, but it actually worked out well because a lot of people are staying on the outsides of the lake, and it could be a little cumbersome getting in and out of there with local roads, especially on race day, especially where the bike course goes through, which we'll talk about. But this is, if you take the top of Lake Seneca, where the lake starts, the northernmost end in Geneva, and just go straight north out of town towards Lake Ontario, it's about halfway there. 25 minutes north, you're at our place we stayed at. We rented an Airbnb. We had the entire house out on the country in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a farmland, but it was great. Plenty of room. It was updated. It had a pool. It had a hot tub. It had plenty for the kids to do, and it was actually a great find up there. And we actually extended it for a few days and actually enjoyed ourselves for a full week up there in the countryside with all the accommodations that we like. So let's get into it. Musselman 70.3. When I look up races, you go on the Ironman website, just like this, and you start poking around. Where, when, what's going on, then you dig a little deeper, look at the course details. So 70.3 Musselman, you're looking at a lake swim, a rolling bike, a rolling run, average air temperature of 70 degrees, average water temperature of 72 degrees, and to me, that seemed like pretty good. As far as lake swims, I've never done an event in a lake. I've done a couple river swims. I'm usually doing a bay swim or an ocean swim, so that was going to be unique to me. But for myself, being an average swimmer, I look at the water temperature, 72 degrees. Typically, it's always a wetsuit legal race. It's usually below 76 degrees. That water temperature, no issues, we're good to go. And as far as the bike, I'm pretty strong on the bike. Consider myself a pretty strong runner as well. And rolling, perfect for me. If you can see, I like to go fast on my bike. I like to have rolling runs. I do a lot of hill work when I do my running. So, doesn't say hilly, said rolling. Looked at some of the course profiles. Didn't seem that bad. We're booking the race. We're doing it. So, leading into this race, I had some goals, and I'll tell you about them in a little bit. But uneventful, getting up there. myself, my wife, kids, 2 bikes, everything jammed in, started boogieing up there a couple days in advance. While we were headed up there, I was tracking, water temperature, just see, short sleeve, long sleeve suit, not sure what we're going to do. It was reading on the websites about 69 degrees, a little cooler than it was back at home, so I brought both wetsuits just in case. And forecast wise, we were looking at potentially a stormy weekend. It was raining on and off all week up there. It rained on our way up there. We went through some thunderstorms. So iffy for Sunday, for race day. We just weren't sure where the chips were going to fall, what was going to happen, but we were tracking the storm pretty close. We got up there, settled in, headed into town, headed into, the day before check-in, see the expo setting up. We're actually one of the first ones there. We took a walk there down by the water. It just finished raining, so everything was all wet. They were starting to set up the swim entrance. And myself, my wife, and our friend Brian, we're all just looking out there. They actually had the buoy set up. And, for me, not being, I guess you should say, the best swimmers, the weakest of my 3 disciplines, what I liked about the lake was when we got there, you could fully see just out on the lake all the buoys set up. There was no downturn, river swim, you don't see where the end is, or out in a bay, around a corner or anything. It was literally, you could just see out, 2 turns, back in, all the buoys, the sighting out buoys, sighting in buoys, and it was just nice and calm, the lake. And I was like, wow, I'm actually kind of looking forward to this swim. So we're out there talking. Somebody comes over. They're starting to mess around with some of the barricades by the swim start. And we were just joking around, and we're like, oh, so how cold do you think that water is? We're from Long Island. The water's getting warm down there. The guy goes, well, introduces himself actually as the race director and says, well, actually, we went out there this morning and we measured the temperature and it was 79 degrees. I said, excuse me, 79 degrees? He goes, yeah, we didn't even believe it. We went out a little bit further into the lake to try and get another measurement, and it was 79 degrees. So as far as Ironman rules go, anything above 76 and change degrees winds up being a wetsuit optional race up until certain degrees. I believe it's 82 degrees. And that means you could wear a wetsuit, you just have to start from the back and everyone filters through. And it just gives you a whole nother thing to think about on race day. And it was like, wow, 79 degrees? Again, and shades of Maine last year in Augusta where the same thing happened. It was a river swim in July. I brought my long sleeve suit because I thought it was going to be that cold up there. And the same thing happened when I got there. 79 degrees. So from now on, my tip is wherever you plan on going to race, bring everything you have swim-wise. Meaning, in Maine, I have a swim skin that I could have wore. I went no wetsuit at that 70.3 last year because of the water temperature. But I had a swim skin that I was comfortable swimming in back at home. So that's something I'm going to consider in the future is even if they're telling me it's 70 degrees when I leave my house, I'm bringing my short sleeve, my long sleeve, my swim skin. I'll decide there. That was a tip somebody told me, and just make sure you have it all. You won't have to panic about anything. You'll have the things that you're used to swimming in, and you can make that decision as it gets closer to race day up there. So there you have it. That threw a lot of people into a tizzy. There was some people's first 70.3 race. Some people aren't that confident in the water without their wetsuit, especially being in a lake. You don't have the buoyancy, but it is what it is. That just threw on more anxiety for everybody. You're in the team chats. It was just going back and forth about it, going forth back. And then after all said and done with that, I'm like, it really doesn't matter what your decision is in that, because now you got to think about there's potentially going to be thunderstorms on the bike all day and downpour. And there is some elevation on the course, so it's not like you're just going to be on the flat terrain out in the rain. You got to consider the weather elements. So it was just one of those roller coaster of emotions. You do all of this training, 4 to 5 months of specific training to step up to the race day. But I always say you can only control the controllables. It is what it is on race day. You have to learn how to adapt and overcome. That's part of the experience with racing. And you could train the best, you could have the best pacing plan, you could have a goal that day, and then all of a sudden there's an outside factor that you just have to deal with. But guess what? Most likely everybody else has to deal with the same thing. Everybody else had to make the same decision on what they were going to wear for race day, how they were going to, bike in the rain or whatever it was, and that's just one of those decisions you have to make. So let's continue on. That was what we were dealing with the swim. So expo, we head in like every other expo, nothing crazy. It was actually pretty small, and I get it. It rained a lot when they were setting it up, so it was a little bit of a mishmash when they were getting it set up. But again, all the typical stuff out there, all the typical merchandise. You get your shirt, you get your hat, you get your water bottles, you check in. All's good. Feeling fresh. Went for a lake swim actually the next day. Beautiful lake spot down the block that you can go. There's a state park, so easy practice swim at this venue that you can get the day before. And it was actually, the water was warm. I wore my short sleeve. I said, you know what, I'm not overheating in this. It was the afternoon, the sun was out. So I made the decision at that point, I'm wearing my wetsuit for this race. It's early in the year. I haven't done a lot of swimming, and I've done only basically open water swimming with a wetsuit so far this year. I'm wearing it. If I got to start after all the non-wetsuit swimmers, so be it. I'm not going for any age group awards. I know that. I'm just going to have a good day with me versus me and my goals. So make your decision. Don't let any other outside factors or people decide for you. Only you know your comfort level with your swimming ability and what you need on race day. So again, make that decision on your own and stick to it. All right, so let's have it. Musselman 70.3, race morning. We get up, we get there. Unfortunately, the logistics of parking, the parking is actually, it's probably almost about 3/4 of a mile to a mile away. You park down the run course at the state park and you have to walk in the morning. So kind of prepare. Parking was fine, but you're going to have at least about a 15-minute walk, which wasn't bad. You're able to kind of warm up, talk, get the nerves out, get there, show up at transition, get all your stuff ready. And then, like always, it goes by very quick. They're kicking you out of transition and you're going to line up on the swim start. As far as size of the field, it was about just under 1,600 people, I believe it was, total that signed up for this event, or at least showed up on race day. So we were factoring in if they were going to put 3 people in the water at once, which they were going to step off of a dock into knee-high level water and then continue on into the water in intervals, that it would probably take about 45 to 50 minutes to get in the water. So we lined up at the swim start, saw as many teammates as we could. Everybody was feeling good. The storm and the rain kind of held off that morning. It was being pushed a little further today. We at least knew we'd have a dry swim, that it potentially would start raining sometime on the bike. And we probably waited, I guess the race started at 6:30. I believe we got in the water just at about 7:05, so about a half hour of stand around time. We did seat ourselves back at about the 45-minute window, I believe. So there was a decent amount of people still behind us. But as far as the swim course, I'll pop it up on the screen right here. This is the swim course. Filter you down into a makeshift dock of 3. You basically step into the water, it's up to your knees, and off you go into the water. You're gonna head out and make a quick left turn at a buoy, and then it's gonna be straight out into the lake. You're gonna go out 7 buoys straight out, so you're talking about maybe about 700-800 yards out. There'll be a red turn buoy. You're gonna make a left turn. You're gonna hit 2 more buoys before you start your return buoys. And then you'll have about 3 to 4 more buoys on that first left turn. You're going to make another left turn, and then you're going to head in past 7 more return buoys before you get up on your legs back onto your level ground. Again, myself, I'm not very aggressive in the swim. I like to keep my space, go on the outside, find a smooth stroke, get comfortable. It's always that first anxiety moment for me when I'm just out there and I just know, hey, you got about 40 to 50 minutes of swimming ahead of you. You got a lot of people to get around, avoid, and just try and have a comfortable swim while saving enough energy for your bike and your run. All was going pretty well. It really wasn't, too crazy out there. I went in with Brian and my wife into the water at the same time, and she was actually next to me most of the swim. I could actually see her as I'm breathing out my left side that, she was there. So that kind of just gave me some little bit of comfort that there, people that I swim with on a regular basis are out here. We're kind of swimming together, just getting this done. We made that first left turn on the far end. We came down, and all of a sudden it started slowing down a little bit, the swim. We were halfway there. I was kind of at my goal for where I needed to be, and we'll talk about goals in a little bit. Coming around that last buoy to head in that last 700-800 yards, for some reason the water got very, very choppy. I don't know if it was the storm that was blowing in or because we were closer to the shore, so kind of the chop from the water was hitting off the seawall there. But it was pretty choppy. I mean, I could compare that to some of the ocean swims that I've done, where you would just come up to breathe and you were just going up for the ride trying to catch some air. And it just beat me up a little bit. I started, swallowing a little bit of lake water, and I was just, thankfully it was on the last stretch. So it was more of those, let me just get this done. Let me just get to land as quickly as possible. Other than that though, I mean, afterwards, a lot more people thought it would be a more graceful swim. Lake swim, we thought it was gonna be a lot flatter, smoother. It just happened to be a little rougher than we thought that morning. But as far as temperature wise, I should say that morning, they actually Temperature came in at 76 degrees, so it actually wound up being wetsuit legal. So through all of that, most people actually wore their wetsuit, and you were allowed to start as a group. So temperature was spot on with that, and it did feel like it dropped 1 or 2 degrees since the day before. But for me, short sleeve, temperature-wise, overcast in the morning, didn't overheat at all. It was perfect, and it was a pretty smooth swim otherwise. Getting towards the swim exit, though, is pretty funny. It gets pretty shallow towards the end, and you're swimming, and then you say, you know, I only got 30, 40 yards to go. Why am I swimming so shallow? Let me just stand up. And as soon as you stand up, they keep telling you, keep swimming, keep swimming. It's going to drop off. And you're like, what? Wait, you know, you're like, what is he talking about? Step, step, step. And then literally 5 steps later, the bottom just drops off again because it's a boat ramp, and you were just seeing people fall back into the water and have to continue their swim for the last 20 yards. So if you're doing this race and it's the same swim setup, swim to the end. Literally just swim until you hit the ramp and then get out and go. Transition wise, it's literally right there. So you can have a great transition time. You get out of the swim, make a quick right turn, you're staring at the bike racks. So you get right out, you get into transition, you go do your thing. Again, transitions, practice them. Practice, practice, practice. I see all the time, and I yell at, you know, my athletes, I joke with them sometimes is, you know, what are you doing in transition? It's free time. And, you know, I get T1, you want to get your bike, everything set up. You don't want to forget anything. You want to get a smooth transition onto the bike. But especially when we talk about that T2, man, drop that bike, grab your shoes, and go. That's where you can really make up some time, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. So T1 came in. I decided to wear socks that day. Had, you know, took a little extra time to, you know, just get those on, a couple extra seconds. But it is what it is. I feel like I had a very good transition time. And again, I'll go over those goals in a little bit, but I want to go through the course first. Perfect, good. As soon as you exit, transition with your bike, you're mounting on the mount line, and you're off, and you're ready to roll for the bike course. So now let's get into it. Musselman bike course. I'll throw the elevation and everything, the chart up here. You're going to basically leave Geneva and go between 2 lakes. You're going to go on the east side of Seneca Lake towards the other lake, and it's going to be a 1-loop course, which I love. I love 1-loop 70.3 courses. It's just, it's nice to not run into any more traffic on that second loop, and it just opens up a lot. And you're talking about total elevation under 1,700 feet. I've done courses with much more than that on rolling hills, so I figured this wasn't going to be necessarily that bad at all. Looking at the course elevation profile, which I'll put up on the screen here, again, it didn't seem all that daunting. I talked to a few people that did it last year. They said there's 1 or 2 punchy little climbs that you have to get out of the big ring for, and you just have to, you know, grin and bear it, but it's a pretty fast course overall. So I was kind of excited about that. Approaching the bike course, there's some construction going on leaving town. Unfortunately, it's not going to be done until the end of the year, so it was a little bumpy the first couple miles getting out of Geneva and getting onto the bike course. But this was actually, I believe, voted the best 70.3 bike course in North America. So I was kind of excited about that too. So heading into the bike course, you know, let's break it down real quick. Is your first 10 miles, you do have a net incline, so you are kind of traveling out of transition uphill already for the first 10 miles, which is, you know, kind of a little bit of a bummer there. From about mile 10 to about mile 20, you kind of come back going downhill, getting back to that even elevation. And then you start climbing. Again, the biggest climbs is from about mile 23, 24 through about mile 38. It's a pretty decent uphill, and there's 1 or 2 decent climbs, I want to say. I'll call them climbs just because, you know, you're going to get down into the lower gear and you're going to grind it out a little bit. You got to get to the top. I did drive the bike course before. I always recommend that with any new course you do. It is so well worth, especially for a 70.3, that hour or an hour 20 minutes to just drive it, see it, know what your just road conditions, if there's any hills, even like I said, even as a flat course, just to see the road conditions and where you're going. You'll know if there's a construction area that's a little rough, whatever it is. It just gives you that little bit of strategy that you need. And then what I was really excited about looking at the elevation profile on this course was that back end. Once you hit and top out at about mile 36 or so, 37, it's basically almost all downhill after that, with 1 little climb at the end, which really isn't a climb. But it's basically supposed to be a fast back end of the course. Now, let's talk about weather. We thought it was going to rain that day. I did download this app that I actually found online in one of the groups, and I want to pull up the name of it real quick, is called Epic Ride Weather. So what Epic Ride Weather is you can load a route. I loaded the Musselman bike course into it. You select when you're going to leave. So, hey, I figured whatever time in the morning, 8 o'clock, I'm going to get on the bike. And it will forecast your entire ride with the elevation profile, with the wind, in what direction it's going to be, and the chance of rain during your ride. And I must say, I'm a data guy, obviously, and as a coach, that's kind of natural, is I like to just see everything. So I'm going to put the video quick of what that app looks like up here, as well as what I really liked about it was, since this was a big loop between the lakes, they said it can get pretty windy between the lakes, it actually will give you the wind direction as you're riding during, so if the wind's going to shift 2 hours in, it's going to show that shift on where that wind is going to be at where you are on the bike course. So going into the bike course, I already knew that we were going to have crosswind leaving town while we're doing these climbs. As we're headed south on the bike course, we're going to have going into a headwind climbing, which is going to be tough, burning some of those matches. But when we reach that turnaround at the bottom of the course and head back north for that fast downhill back end, we were going to have the wind directly at our backs. And I knew that. And I was waiting for that time at about mile 36, where we made that final turn to continue up Seneca Lake back towards Geneva, where I felt it. As soon as we made that turn, I felt the wind in my back. I was looking on the computer. I knew that was basically the last climb for that section. It was all downhill from there. And we let it rip. And my average speed on that section alone, well made up for it. I probably burned a couple too many matches going into the wind and climbing, plus that extra little jolt I had on the back end. So my legs were starting to feel it. It was a pretty tricky bike course. And even though the elevation doesn't seem bad, a lot of these downhills are not really rolling. They're not rolling into another hill. When you're coming downhill, just like kind of in Maine last year in Augusta, is you would go downhill and you'd have a hard turn. You'd have to slow down, hit that hard turn, hit another hard turn, and then continue on. You really couldn't continue the momentum downhill into the next hill, where like the old main course in Old Orchard Beach was very rolling, and it was kind of like one big loop of a road where you can hit down that hill, continue up the next hill. Same as Tennessee, same in Chattanooga, where you really hit those downhills into the next uphill, and it really carries your speed. So that was kind of a factor, and that really burned a lot of people's legs out, was having to deal with that on the bike course. So I felt some things on the bike, my legs. I said, oh, we had definitely dug a little bit too deep here, but hey, it is what it is. Heading back into town, the rain held off. Thank goodness, we were all good. I didn't care what it did at that point. We hit in for T2, again, very quick, dismount. I had a decent bike rack right there. Put the bike on. What else is there to do in T2? I mean, tell me what you people do in T2, because to me, T2 is this is coming from a coaching perspective, can be so efficient and quick, especially 70.3 distance with the dirty transition where everything is right there. So you don't have bags to get or anything. You literally are, for me, I come out of my shoes, I leave them on the bike, dismount, run my bike to the rack, hook it, helmet off, hat on, glasses, shoes, grab your bib, and start going to the exit. So I believe, I tried looking it up, you can't track your transition times by the field, it doesn't tell you. But I know in my age group, I was definitely like top 3 for that T2. I pride myself on a fast T2 all the time and getting myself as quick as possible in and out. So we head out onto the run course, and we did not drive the run course or check it out really before time. It was just a little different than last year. I believe it's set up a little different to avoid some of the train tracks up there. But it is a 2-loop course basically. You're going to head out of transition, loop, go to the other end, do it again, and then come back home through the finish line. Elevation-wise, really not bad. It says, 361 feet of elevation. I do a lot more than that on my long runs all the time. And if you look at the graph, it is strange the way the elevation was. We should have checked it out ahead of time just to see where that elevation comes from. You hit it twice. I'll throw that elevation up on the map there. But they just said it's up, you have to go up and around like an overpass. So I said, oh, okay, we've done that plenty of times before in races. Get out onto that course, and boom, humidity kind of hit you in the face. It was overcast, but you felt it. You just started to get hot. Head out. You're going to head one way first along the lake. It's a quick turnaround over there. not bad, pretty shady. You're going to come past the finish line and go back for this little lollipop loop on the other side. That's where the hills are. You're going to head down, and then I start seeing people way up above on an overpass, and I said, how the hell did they get up there? And then as you get closer, you start to realize you pass the swim start, and it kind of makes a quick right-hand turn. It goes uphill, make another quick right turn, and you're going up this long overpass that kind of goes up around the lake over there. And I was like, whoa, that is a climb right there. And my legs were kind of feeling ready. You're a couple miles in at this point. First couple miles were good. I was feeling it. We were below the pace we wanted, but some of those muscles from the bike just were saying, nope, it's hot out. You better start fueling. It's getting a little tough. Let me just get up this hill. I had to do this hill twice. So I kind of grinded that first hill on that first loop, hit some of the 8 stops. You go make this little lollipop into town up there and head down the block. You make a left turn, and there is a nice steep hill again on the back end for a second hill that you got to hit on that loop. And right then and there I said, that's going to hurt me on the next loop. I know it. So I started to kind of shuffle my way up there. It's a kind of sharp downhill on the back end. You come back through, you do that again. My goal on that run course was stay cool. I learned this when I did my full 2 years ago. I had this cooling band, which I actually stuffed in my back pocket for the run, and I'm going to do that all my summer races. You can see in some of the pictures, I tucked it in my kit right here, and at the 8 stops, I would dump water on the back of my neck. It would absorb into that cooling towel and then kind of evaporate, and I was trying to keep myself cooler. I think that worked because I really wasn't feeling overheated, and I was making sure I was taking in water, Gatorade, definitely that Coca-Cola on the last 6 miles. That was a savior again. And taking salt on the run. I should have brought some salt with me on the bike. I could have got a little bit ahead on that before I hit the run, but I'll do that for my next race. I'll make sure I always bring one for the bike and one for the run. At least I brought it for the run this year. I forgot it for one of my races last year, and it kind of bit me in the butt. And just kind of fueled. The team was doing great. We had a team tent along the course, so we had some people coming up, family, friends cheering us on, so we would pass that at least 2 times. You'd hit it the 3rd time when you cross the finish line. So that was awesome. Just having so many people up there from the team and athletes that I was coaching this year. Side note from my wife, I believe it was my second loop of the run, passing transition. I had not known, I wasn't able to reach out to anybody about how she was doing, but I did see her in transition coming off the bike. I yelled at her, gave her a thumbs up. She was coming out on the run, and I knew, boom, she's going to do this. She's going to finish today. She's going to finish her first 70.3. So teammates, saw a bunch of them out there. That was a good part about a 2-loop run course. Passing people, seeing people. Oh, they're on their first lap, you're on your second lap. You know, you just back and forth. You're going to pass them a few times. I saw almost everybody that was racing that I knew during the course at some point, which was great. Coming through, just again, that finish line feel. You hit the second lap for the second time. That the hills crushed me on the second lap, slowed me down a little bit, and came through, got that little jolt of energy passing transition and the team tent, making that left, going towards the finish line, headed down there, you know, gave it the big thumbs up as we came across the finish line and put another one in the book. So overall for the day, these are the stats that I was shooting for myself, because it's always me versus me. I like to see improvement. I like to improve in certain areas, things I'm working on, see tangible results, and see where we're going. So for the day, again, weakest discipline, swim. I was going to be happy with a 45-minute swim in a lake, uneventful, get out of the water, nice, good. Was looking for a 5-minute transition time. You never know what's going to happen in transition. It's nice to just have a certain level right there. So, you know, if I'm more than 5 minutes, we got an issue. Bike, I was looking for about a 240, which would lead me to a 21 mile per hour bike split. T2, again, I always shuffle in there, 5 minutes for transition. If I can hold together a 140 half marathon, that's at 7:40 a mile, which should be attainable for myself, I'd be looking at 5:15:27. So really the goal for the day, my A goal was to come in below 5:15 for this race. First of 3 this year, so it would be a great starting point of just getting out there, getting some numbers, and having a good result. So how did we do? Swim was a little more eventful than I anticipated. So we did lose some time there. I unfortunately just crept in and the 49 and change. Not very good overall, but that's typically where I've been with the amount of swimming that I've been putting in lately. There's just not enough time in the day to get all the swimming, biking, running, family, work, and all that other stuff in. So for me, unfortunately, swimming usually takes the first hit. So there you go. I lost a couple minutes with that. I knew coming out of the water, you're a couple minutes behind. That's probably what pushed me a little bit with that bike. 5 minutes transition, I came out just over 3 minutes, so I gained a little bit of time back. So now I'm only about 2 or 3 minutes behind my goal time for the day. We hit the bike course. I really didn't look at my computer the first 30 miles or so. I was just concentrating on power and the elevation and where the hills were. So I wasn't really concentrating on miles per hour. I was going by power. But once I knew that back section was coming, that fast section, I knew I could make up some time. I looked down, I saw where I was at, and I was kind of just below that 21 mile per hour average that I was looking for. I knew it'd be a fast section, so I said if I can get 15 miles of pretty hard biking in at above that pace that I was looking to average, I'd be good with that. We wound up coming through. I was looking for a 240 bike split, came in with a 233 bike split, just creeping below 22 miles per hour average. So right there, I knew I made some minutes up, and we were now in sub-range to beat that 515. And I had that second transition coming, that little bit of insurance where I allot 5 minutes for myself, and we came out of T2, 1 minute, 19 seconds. I knew I was going to make up time on that. We were in, we were out, and we made another 3 minutes in the bank on that. So coming on to the run, I knew, hey, let's go. Let's see what we got. Hold together what you can for your pace. We'll see if you fall apart or not. I knew if I would have just, if I could hold together that 140 and I have a couple minutes in the bank, a 145 on the run, you're going to be good. The first few miles were well below the pace, started to slow down, and I knew, hey, last couple miles actually were pretty much of a grind. I kind of didn't worry about the 515. I said if it's there, fight this to the end. If you get it, you get it. If not, you're going to be close. Just don't stop. Don't give up. Just keep going and keep pushing. So on the run, wound up, I was looking for a 140 on the run. I wound up with a 145 and change. With just about 8 minutes a mile, I was looking for 740. But at the end of the day, because of those key transition times, we were able to sneak in at 5:13:49, hitting our goal for that 5:15 for race 1 of 2023. Overall, great day. Always earned, never given. That was kind of the sentiment with everybody. The few race recaps I've done so far with athletes and other teammates was, this is not the PR course for you. If you're looking to PR, it is. And there are other courses that would lead to a more conducive PR time if that's what you're looking for. Now, the inevitable question, Musselman 70.3, would I go back? Would I do it again? Because I do like to repeat courses. Just like I said with Augusta, Maine last year, it was great to do the race. It was a phenomenal race, but it's not a place I'm going to go back to right away next year. There's other events I want to do, other things I'm trying to accomplish, but it's not out of the question if this race goes on for the next few years to go back and give it a whirl again. But as of right now, it's not on the radar to go back to again. I do have 2 more races coming up this year, 70.3 races that is. We're going to be doing, of course, down the block, right here, Long Island, Jones Beach, 70.3 in September. That's the next A race. And then a lot of athletes that I'm helping coach are going to be doing North Carolina shortly after that at the end of October, which I have some unfinished business there because of the flat tire last year on the bike course. So we're putting most of our eggs in the basket for Jones Beach, but North Carolina this year, I'm coming for you. We're going to hit that course hard, and we're going for a PR in North Carolina. So there you go. I mean, that's all I got for race recap. Musselman 70.3. For me, I'm not very good at typing long essays on Facebook and all these other things on my race reports or blogging about it. I like to just unwind, feel the emotions the week after the race, put it out there, and now it's out there. I can come back years later, wonder, hey, remember what happened in Musselman? Let me watch that video again. So I like documenting. Document things, document what you feel, because next thing you know, it's a couple years later, and if you want to learn anything from any things you've done, you have to document it. So now that the race recap's done, this bracelet can come off. That's going to be how I determine when my bracelets come off from now on, is going to be as soon as you record your video and it goes on the YouTube channel, you're going to cut that bracelet off and you're going to move on to the next one. So any questions you have about Musselman, please shoot me an email down below, visit the website, comment, like, have you done this race? Are you doing it next year? Anything you got, please reach out. And again, Awesome seeing everybody out there. Awesome being back to racing for 2023. And that's it. Stay safe, stay healthy, balance that life 1 mile at a time, and we'll see you on the next one.
We only get one life. We only get one life like this. We only get one life. We only get one life like this.